Hello and welcome to Following Directions with Kandinsky. I'm about to share a really great lesson for integrating those often forgotten speaking and listening standards. I will also share a bit about using the lesson for a writing assignment, but first I want to introduce myself. My name is Amanda KOONLABA and I'm an art teacher in Tupelo, Mississippi, hence the accent. I'm a content specialist with Education Closet and I operate my own blog called Party in the Art Room. I have over 12 years of teaching experience both in a visual arts classroom and an elementary regular education classroom. And I've spent the duration of my teaching career at arts integrated schools. I actually have a pretty interesting story about that I want to share with you. I did my student teaching in my first 6 years of teaching at a model school for arts integration. So this means that the school had been through a very lengthy vetting process to be deemed a model for what arts integration should look like at the school-wide level. So this is a designation that you can get in Mississippi from our Arts Commission. So the arts really, really drove the culture of that school. It was amazing. And that was the first teaching experience that I'd ever had. I had never been at any other school. I'd student taught there and got hired there. So the arts were just embedded in everything we did. And I ended up getting to go to another school in the same district to be the art teacher. And the principals who hired me said they wanted someone with my background to help lead them in implementing arts integration. So I went from this really arts-driven, amazing arts culture school to a school that had almost nothing going on where the arts were concerned. And this was a life-changing experience for me. And I think the reason I want to share this with you is because I think this is where my passion comes from and how I can sit here and say, I know this works. I saw just the stark differences in the cultures of those schools. You know, the one that was arts-driven was lively and it was, excuse me, I couldn't believe the inequity between the two schools in the same district, and I believed that it was because of the arts integration and the arts culture. So I spent the next 6 years working with the staff is amazing at the school where I work now, where we spent 6 years trying to build the arts in the school, and it's been a truly humbling experience to be a part of that. So I just think this background is what makes me so passionate now, and I know arts integration works. I just wanted to kind of tell you that story to connect with you a little bit on a personal level. And now let's talk about Kandinsky. So I just love Kandinsky. Those concentric circles are super popular with teachers and students, and just even in the culture, the concentric circles are everywhere. Just look on Pinterest, you'll see those circles everywhere. But there's so many great ways, and there's so many great ways to use them in the classroom. But I want to share something a little different with you today. So again, this lesson is called Following Directions with Kandinsky, and students will be naturally curious to know just a little bit about the artist who created the artworks. So I always like to make sure to share some details about the artist with them. Here, I'm going to show you a really short video that I created. It's just to kind of build your background knowledge on Kandinsky, and it's something also that you can use with your students in your classroom. So since you're going to have lifetime access to this session, you can use this if you need it. The creator of the first modern abstract paintings, Vasily Kandinsky, was an influential Russian painter and art theorist. In his youth, he studied law and economics at the University of Moscow. He was 30 years old when he began his studies in painting, focusing on life drawings, sketching, and anatomy at the University of Munich. In 1914, after the beginning of World War I, Kandinsky returned to Moscow, where he did not find much inspiration in the art world. In 1921, he returned to Munich, where he taught at the Bauhaus School of Architecture until it was closed by the Nazis in 1933. He was an active art theorist, publishing a number of books on art theory and developing a complex and deeply emotional theory about the ability of colors and shapes to represent sound and human emotion. He eventually traveled to the United States to lecture on the topic. After the Bauhaus was closed, Kandinsky moved to Paris, where he was mostly isolated from the other Impressionist or Cubist painters. He eventually became a French citizen and lived the rest of his days there. His legacy lives on in the newly created Kandinsky Award, which rewards a promising young Russian artist a €55,000 prize and attempts to elevate the status of contemporary Russian art. So you guys will have access to a PDF download that has a lesson plan, I can statement posters, images of a completed project, and some in progress pictures, and a graphic organizer for looking at Kandinsky's work. And there's also lots of helpful tips in that PDF. So I'm going to use the PDF kind of to guide this discussion. I hope that you will actually be able to take the lesson plan and just copy it and tweak it and turn it in so that you don't have to come up with a lesson plan from scratch, because I think that would be a time saver for you. So I hope that you're able to do that. The set hook for this lesson is for students to view one or more of Kandinsky's works with shapes and lines. I've included a couple of those in the PDF that you can pull up on your smartboards or print out for students. But you're going to model talking about the work with students. So this is how that would look. This is Composition 8 by Vasily Kandinsky. Some circles in the upper left corner resemble an ellipse. The circle near the center has 3 triangles touching it. This makes me think about a clock. I see red, blue, and yellow repeated all throughout the artwork. These colors kind of contrast with the black and white. I also notice that almost all of the lines are black. I see what looks like a grid in several places. So I've noticed, some planets and a clock, and I see these grids, and they make me think about space because the grids might look like a grid of buttons on a control panel at NASA. After you model how to do that, you're going to have students work with a partner to talk about what they notice. They can record their observations on the graphic organizer. You can have them discuss possible themes. Theme is very similar in art to theme in reading. You can either let them use the same work that you model with, just like the one that I just did, or you can give them a different one. Or you might want to do both, just depending on your knowledge of students. And you can use the ones that I've provided, or you can go to wikiart.org, and there are tons of great Kandinsky works there. So after they've had time to analyze and record their information, you're going to lead a discussion about the theme. So if you noticed, when I was modeling how to analyze the work, I didn't talk about theme. You want to let them just kind of jump in and talk about theme, and then you're going to bring that discussion back in with theme. So you can have a few people share their thoughts and get them to justify their reasoning. If they say that they think the theme of the work is a circus, you need to have them explain why they think that. Another thing, for instance, if a student were to say that the theme is space, and they should be able to say something that is because several of the shapes look like planets and something looks like a moon. Some common answers that I get for these for possible themes include math, science, space, numbers, and shapes. And I love to make a class chart of the possibilities. I think the kids like seeing their answers recorded, plus it helps them remember. And we don't know what Kandinsky's theme was. We know he liked music, and we know he was kind of a mathematical minded person, but we don't actually know what the theme was for him. So it's okay for us to look and think about what the theme could be based on what we know about art and about the artist and about the composition of the piece. So after you've done this analysis of Kandinsky's artwork, it's time for the students to create their own, and this is the fun part. You can explain to them that they will be using lines and shapes to create their own work that is inspired by those of Kandinsky's that they viewed. So they're not copying Kandinsky's work, they're just inspired by it. Have them kind of think about what theme they'd like to represent in their artwork. All students will complete the same first 10 steps, but after that they can add their own details, and adding those details will help them complete the representation of their theme. So, they might choose a theme that's Nothing like Kandinsky's. They might choose love, and they might want to add some hearts in theirs, but that would be after they did the first 10 steps. So your PDF has the exact instructions that you can read aloud to students, and I will go through those with you now. Draw a large circle in the bottom left corner of the paper. The circle should be about the same size as your hand. This will be the largest shape that you draw on your paper. Draw 2 smaller circles inside the circle you just drew. Draw 3 medium-sized circles anywhere on the paper. These circles should be smaller than the very first circle you drew. They should not be near each other. Draw 2 smaller circles inside each of your medium-sized circles. Draw 2 squares that are about the same size anywhere on the paper. Make sure the squares are drawn near each other, but do not let them touch. Draw a rectangle below one of the circles. The top of the rectangle should touch the bottom of the circle. Now, draw a triangle above a different circle. Make sure the bottom of the triangle touches the top of the circle. Draw stripes inside of the squares. Draw 5 stars anywhere on the paper. Look back at Kandinsky's transverse line. Find 4 things about that work that inspire you. Use those to add 4 more things to your own work. These instructions were designed to give enough direction for each student to have to listen, think, and do. However, each student will have to think about what they heard and then make a decision about how to do it. That's going to force them to make decisions. I don't let them ask me if they're doing it right. I just tell them, I trust them to listen and then do what they hear me say. Stress the thinking before doing part of this. And I also don't let them erase. I tell them they have to think before they do anything. Telling them they can't erase really encourages the thinking part. But keep in mind, though, the kids are really reliant on erasers, and it can push them a little out of their comfort zone to be told they can't erase. So just be encouraging about it. So technically, you could add color any way you prefer, but I love the way this project looks, so I will share with you exactly how we did it. I had them trace their lines with a black permanent marker. And then I had them go back over it 2 more times. So they traced, and then they traced, and they traced. I told them that the lines don't have to match exactly. So in some of the examples that you'll see that the line, there's some places where the lines are really dark and bold because they do match, and they made the lines darker and bolder. But there's some places where the lines don't actually match, and it just gives it this really interesting repetition. It gives it that little bit extra as far as making the work visually appealing. It adds this little bit of extra interest visually. So then after they traced, they used crayons to color in some of their spaces. I'm obsessed with Crayola's construction paper crayons. They just show up so well for this technique. And I made sure to stress to them that they needed to leave the background white. They did not need to color the background. So finally, the final step was they painted over the whole sheet with liquid watercolor, which creates a wash. They don't paint in the little areas. They paint top to bottom over the whole sheet. I think we used Dick Blick black liquid watercolor. Some of my classes used straight black watercolor, and some of my classes had it diluted with water. So when you dilute it with water, you get like a gray color. And then I had them sprinkle some salt on the wet paint. And there's kind of a trick to getting kids to do this. It causes the paint to diffuse on the paper and move around. So it looks really cool once it dries. But I tell my students to take their pinching fingers and pinch 3 times. So they pinch up some salt, and then they sprinkle it. And they pinch it up, and they sprinkle it, and they pinch up, and they sprinkle it. Any more than that, and it'll create like a muddy thing on the paper. And you're going to have some students that are going to want to use all the salt. So stress to them that using more than 3 pinches is going to make mud. And someone is probably going to do it, and somebody is probably going to put all the salt on their paper, and they're just going to have to live with their artwork like that. It'll be fine, but that would create a teachable moment for you to talk to them about how they need to make better decisions in the future and pay attention to what they're doing. So that's a great teachable moment. I'm giving you access to a PDF of a rubric for assessing this lesson. It's in PDF format, and you can download it from the session of this conference, just like you did the PDF of the slides and everything that I've been showing you so far. So here's what it looks like and how you can use it. There's 2 pages, and each page has speaking and listening look-fors as well as visual art look-fors. The first page has bullets, and I like to just post this for the students to reference, and I go over it with them so they know what I'm looking for as they work. Then the second sheet has a chart where you can record whether you observed these behaviors in each student, and this is an informal assessment based on your teacher observations. So, those are students listen as the teacher speaks. You're just looking for that attentive behavior, like they are hearing your directions. They listen as other students speak when they're having the discussions about the artwork. Students think before they respond, and students follow the oral directions. And then visual art look-fors are students discussing the actual work of Kandinsky. Do they listen to each other as they discuss the work of Kandinsky? That's all about the listening or the analyzing artwork. And then students use art vocabulary such as color, line, and shape. And then the student manipulates the art materials such as glue, pencils, and scissors. And that's really all about the fine motor skills that go with this lesson. Again, this is an informal assessment. It's just based on your teacher observations. But if you're looking for something that you can formally assess to go with this lesson, you could have students do a written piece on the project. And there are a couple of ways to do this with ELA. You could have them do a descriptive piece to tell about their artwork or another student's artwork even. They can analyze their own artwork or analyze another student's artwork the same way they analyze Kandinsky's artwork. You could have them do a reflective, very, very personal piece about what they did and what they did well, how they could improve, and why they chose the theme they chose. You could also have them do a procedural piece where they retrace the steps, particularly those 10 steps that they heard orally. Now keep in mind though, if you assess this, you're actually assessing writing and not necessarily the speaking and listening. So I suggest this, though, if you're an ELA teacher looking for a writing grade or just extra writing practice for your students, this is a great add-on, and it would give you something to go with this project that you could assess, that you could you could even take these pieces all the way through the writing process. That would be really good. Now, for closure, I like to review positional words by having the students just use their bodies. I'll say put your left hand above your head, or, I always try to get some kind of movement and crossing of the midline when I can. So I would, put your right hand over your shoulder. That way they have to cross this midline. And that is Following Directions with Kandinsky. I hope you can use this with your students. But before we go, I'd like to point you over to Party in the Art Room. The link is www.partyinartroom.com. There's a blog post with over 30 photos of student work from this lesson that you can look. I think those might be helpful for you to see some additional work samples. And I have a couple of exciting things happening with the blog right now. I'm in the process of upgrading to a much more user-friendly program or platform. Yay, I'm really excited about that. But I'm also offering an ebook with other lessons that feature the work of Kandinsky. So go check that out and check out the other mass of resources I'm building with Kandinsky. I've spent the whole month of January working with Kandinsky. I'd love you to sign up for my newsletter and to follow Party in the Art Room on social media, and you can find all of that on the blog. Finally, if you're here, I'm sure you already do, but make sure that you follow Education Closet. I'm working very closely with Education Closet to create some amazing arts integrated resources for teachers to use with their students. I also write an article every month for the magazine, and I create video content. So if you like this lesson and you want to keep up with the fun and the incredible resources, please go follow us. I hope you have an amazing rest of the school year. Remember, reach out if you need anything. We're here for you.